This Rise and Shine podcast series has been made possible by the generosity of the Zeidelman Family Foundation, which is committed to the unity and continuity of the Jewish people through meaningful and relevant Jewish education and wisdom.
In the book of Genesis, or Bereshit, the soul is described as God's own breath animating us through the text. And God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold Davis.
I have my mother's hands. She once apologized to me for that. She acknowledged the prominent veins and sunspots and the crepey skin that no longer bounces back when I pull on it, make them, and me, look older than I am. And I've tried all manner of lotions and butters to improve their appearance, but frankly, none of it works. And now, when I get dressed up and I do my makeup, they're the first thing I noticed. And given that I talk with my hands as well, there's no avoiding them. And as my kids will tell you, since I never stop talking, I never stop waving those mitts around and drawing attention to the part of myself that seems to betray my youthful energy and spirit. And in many ways, I'm grateful for them. These hands type 100 words a minute. My mother made us take typing in high school. I'm eternally grateful for that. I can now type as quickly as I think, which helps when you write as much as I do. And these hands do a killer foot rub and a wonderful hand massage. You just ask me when you next see me. I'll be happy to oblige you. The hands are both literally and metaphorically able to help and to heal, to comfort and to stroke. One's hands are neutral until one decides what to use them for. The same hands that can soothe can also slap. The same hands that can lift can also drop. The same hands that can carry can also be stuffed into your pockets and reject offering assistance. Which brings me to the expression, the right hand of God. The right hand of God is meant to imply strength, God's ability to save us. In the book of Exodus, it says, "Your right hand, glorious in power, your right hand shatters the foe." But we all know that God doesn't actually have a hand. That is what's called an anthropomorphization, or attributing human form or human characteristics to something that is not human. Rabbi Jack Abramowitz writes that the famous Torah commentator, the Rambam, explains it like this. The Torah describes God using terms that could be understood by all. It anthropomorphizes him because far too many people are simply incapable of conceiving of an incorporeal being. We see things through the filter of our own experiences, and we therefore relate existing to having a body. When we think of God, it's only natural to picture him in terms we understand, i.e., like us. Now, the Midrash tells us that the Torah speaks the language of man. But it occurred to me that given how we see the world not as it is, but as we are, it's important for us not to obsess upon the physical bits of us just because these days our bodies are the language of man. From Jewish perspective, the body is the vehicle that contains and animates the truest part of our identities, and that is our soul. When we learn that human beings are created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God, we are once again anthropomorphizing. It's the soul that's our essence and is the breath of our Creator. The word neshama, or soul as you hear it, bears a hint. And while there are various ways to say soul in Hebrew, the ones you hear most frequently are nefesh and neshama, both of which mean breath. In the book of Genesis, or Bereshit, the soul is described as God's own breath animating us through the text. And God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So what would happen if we truly shifted the paradigm and attention away from the actual physical attributes of the body into the refinement and beautification of the soul. What are the lotions and potions for good character? How do you smooth out your anger? How do you strengthen your patience muscles? How do you make your outlook more youthful and positive? And how do we become more fixated on what our hands can do than how they look? I've been wrestling with this since I turned 60. How can I care so deeply about how I look and give the pursuit of those looks more time and attention than I do the refinement of my soul? How is it that the body is so darn loud, screaming at us for improvement and refinement, and yet we can dial down the volume of why we're truly here? We are here to correct, refine, and beautify our souls, which are both ageless and eternal, and the Jewish way is to do that work until you take your last breath. Someone told me the other day that she was in a perfect position to say, "I told you so," to someone who had repeatedly not listened to her or taken her advice seriously. There was a moment in real time where a doctor said exactly what she had said earlier, but no one listened to her. She decided at that moment to give her neshama a beauty treatment and stay silent. What was the point, she asked herself at that moment? Is it better to be right, or is it better to have peace and clarity? Later that day, one of her siblings came up to her and told her that she had a lot of class for not taking her shot at that moment. And she said to me, "I felt very, very beautiful in that moment." And so it is, or so it could be. This week, can we take a look at the parts of our bodies, our faces, our physical being that most put us off? Can we reimagine those so-called flaws and find beauty in their function as opposed to their form? Can we look at our hands, not as a place that announces our ages and stages, but as vehicles for giving and for kindness? Because my old hands have served me and those I love well. I think I love my hands. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me that they're for service. Thank you for each vein and each mark and each digit. May I use them for good. May the right hand of God bring me strength.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was sponsored by the Zeidelman Family Foundation. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.